Hello and a very warm welcome to Daman's second webinar in our series on business and technology in the insurance and healthcare sector. So, as was the case this last time, I have the absolute pleasure of being your host today. I'm Frederick, and I'm working with business transformation in Daman, supporting all our teams in building a next generation health insurer. The last time we had a webinar, we were discussing how to get the most out of virtual meetings and how to keep people motivated and engaged in a virtual setting. We had one of the Microsoft Teams experts to guide us through this and teach us some best practice. And we learned about how can we get the most out of virtual meetings and teamwork. So today we will be looking outside the organization and turn our focus to looking at how the health tech market is developing in the UAE, in the GCC, and also worldwide. So I'm very thrilled today to have two experts to give you a perspective on how to make technology work in an incumbent insurance company and what technology is out there and what shift we are seeing in the future, maybe in the near term, but also in the longer term in terms of consumer behavior. So today we'll hear from Daman's own Dr. Maas. He's responsible for Daman's digital healthcare journey initiatives. Dr. Maas, he will talk to us about how it's possible to implement a future-proof app platform and how we in Daman use this to create an evolving and meaningful health journey for all our members. After the doctor, Matt from Sonar, will give us a global perspective on innovation, and he's also exploring the shift towards how our consumers, how our members, how customers are buying insurance, especially with focus on the big tech. This webinar also, of course, as always, have set aside time for questions. So please make sure to use the options and ask whatever questions you want to the presenters, and I will make sure that we take these questions at the end of this webinar today. I think not more talk from my side. Let's get started, Dr. Maas. I'll hand the baton to you. Good luck and welcome.
Thank you, Frederick, for the warm welcome. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about bringing in digital innovation for Daman and in general, insurance users. So as we know, that there's been a lot of talk about how there's been an increased demand for digital services from insurance customers, as well as all services customers in general. And also on the other side, there's been a rapid growth of innovation and our new digital services that have been coming into the market. So there's a meaningful demand and a meaningful supply coming in. The question for insurance companies like us then becomes, how might we bring these innovative digital services to our customers in a way that our customers desire, that's desirable to our customers, meaningful, usable, as well as in turnaround times that are relevant to our customers. So, as we jump into that conversation, I thought let's zoom out and look at what traditionally how we've tried to bring digital innovation and digital services to our customers. The traditional approach has always been either one of the three approaches, either to say let's bring in multiple standalone applications and digital services, each fit for a specific purpose, and bring them to our customers. The challenge with this approach has always been that the apps don't talk to each other. It's a broken customer journey and resulting in a poor customer experience. More importantly, because of having multiple solutions out there, it's difficult for us to focus and drive enough adoption and penetration on either of those assets. On the other end of the spectrum is the approach to acquire large, complicated enterprise solutions, which claim to provide end-to-end range of services. These solutions do come very expensive, but at the same time, they are closed systems. Most of them are closed systems. So attempting to make any changes to react to our changing customer needs or business needs is often an extremely expensive and time-consuming proposition. The third approach is generally being used as an alternate to 1 and 2 has been to say, can we develop these solutions on our own and build in-house applications? Now, this is a complicated position to be in, because with the increasing complexity of the customer needs and the increasing complexity of the digital solutions, it might take extremely long for an intensive investment of capital to build this in-house. So it's essentially a very expensive proposition, takes a lot of time, and often results in a situation where the makers or the companies are locked into their solutions, unable to pivot because of the amount of investment that has already gone in. Faced with these challenges, many new age insurance companies, and as well as other financial services companies, are trying to create a hybrid approach using one or more of these solutions to create a platform and an ecosystem approach to bringing digital services. The key still remains around two pillars. Number one, create a single digital mobile app or a solution which is for our customers, so that we can focus on the customer experience, ensure that we deliver a consistent integrated user experience to our customers, drive penetration and adoption. However, use this mobile app as a gateway to provide a range of services to our customers. Next slide.
That was Microsoft Office, Mars, who thought that this technical illustration got too complex. But I think what you were talking about was the whole idea of creating a layer between the difficult part of the world and then the app world. Is that right?
Yes, creating a single customized layer, a layer that connects that single mobile app that we create to a range of services. Which are brought in through external providers. Okay, next slide. So for example, in our situation for Daman's digital health platform, the aim is to create a single mobile app. That app will provide access to our customers to a range of services, as mentioned over here. For example, activity tracking, prevention wellness program, symptoms checker. Now, the idea is all these services are then supported by a smart integration layer, a services integration layer. Next slide, which helps us orchestrate between the services. The magic over here lies in the shell. So you create a unique experience in the front end for our customer, a singular experience, and then use the services layer to orchestrate between the services, creating customized, individual, specific, experiences and products as well, right? What it also allows us to do is, as you see on the next slide, is bring in the local ecosystem of services. So open up the potential to partner with different service providers in the region for individual services. So as you see, it allows you to expand a breadth of services as well as a depth of portfolio within each service. So you could have multiple services and providers underneath the same service. Next slide. So essentially, I summarize all of it. This approach creates a singular customer experience, helps you, at a significantly lower cost, because it allows us to partner with best-in-class digital services which are available locally. At the same time, without having to rely on them, we can substitute or kind of fragment the customer base and provide them different services. And most importantly, what it does it avoids lock-in and keeps you prepared for the future. We don't know how the future will change. So in order to be able to have that window of opportunity where you can bring in new services very rapidly or change the existing ones to match the newer needs in a short span of time is something that this platform would offer. So that's what I summarized in the previous slide. So that's most of it from my end.
Thanks, Mars. We'll get to the questions later. I just have one comment now, because I do have a confession to make, because the previous slide I stole that one from you when I was teaching some of my MBA students, and when I took the credit of using this slide. There was a lot of questions doubting or asking, but doesn't this require a lot of involvement from your IT operations? Isn't this going to be very difficult to implement in a company? I don't know if you have a comment or two on that.
Definitely. So, Frederick, the beauty of the system is to kind of the way it can be architected to work with existing ecosystem, but also create a world of its own with minimalistic integration. So it's about creating a new world that talks to the old world, but with only very limited points of connection, so that you're not disturbing the core, and you have the mirror outside, and they talk to each other when needed, and create a data stream that's like synchronized between the old and between the existing outside and the internal world. The crux is to kind of create one unified profile of the patient, of the member, that can then be kind of utilized across both systems.
Yeah, thanks. And you explained this better than I did. Okay, thank you very much, Mars. And of course, we in Daman, we're very proud of this solution. And let's just use this as a segue into Matt's presentation, because now, Matt, you're going to tell us a little about what's going on in the world of innovation and what's out there, so to speak. So please take it away, and thank you very much for joining us today.
No, you're very welcome, Frederick. I'm now curious which of my slides, if any, you're going to steal for yourself also.
I'll be honest.
Let me jump in. So thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Matt Connolly. I'm the founder of a company called Sonar. So we work with large insurance companies and health insurance companies around the world, and we help them understand what the direction of travel is for their market, so how their market will change, and the innovation that is going to change that market. And what we do with that information is we help them prepare for the future. So following Dr. Maz's discussion, a big trend that we're witnessing at the moment is open innovation, and for that it's looking at who should we be partnering with to help advance our business. So moving forward to the investment shaping the market, I'm talking about investment as a proxy to analyze trends. And so in particular, I'm looking at health tech, and I'm looking at health tech pertaining to the world of insurance. So I'm particularly interested in the dissection of investment activity. If a lot of money is going into a certain trend or sub-trend, maybe we ought to be paying attention to it. And if that money is particularly early stage, so if that money is small amounts of money, so Series A or below, then maybe that investment will be hitting the market in innovation will be hitting the market in 5 or 10 years. If it's much later stage money, so Series B or above, then actually maybe it's here already today, and that we should be paying attention to it. So either way, let me jump into some 2020 numbers, and also hot off the press, we have some 2021 numbers too to add to the pile. So the Q1 for 2021. So 2020, a 5.7 billion year like no other. So what can we see? What does this tell us? And for me, I can read so much into this. And what we had last year, and I guess we're seeing it, the effects still, is a pretty crazy year globally. So this is total investment activity on the left-hand side. So if you look at the first 6 months of 2020, what happened, right? So obviously COVID happened, and it is still a big part of our lives around the world. From an investment perspective, a VC immediately held back on putting new money into new companies. Yeah, so they doubled down on their portfolio. They didn't want to increase risk, and so it tended to be that the investment activity dropped. From a startup perspective, you also had, actually, if we don't need more money, so if we can hold on to the capital that we have and we can push that as late as possible, then let's not go and raise any more money, because our value is going to be slightly lower than it could be. And so what you had is startups that weren't looking for money, and then you had VCs that didn't want to put new money into startups. Swap that out for the second half of 2020, and it all changed. So actually what we had at the end of 2020 is more money invested into health tech than we did in 2019. So suddenly the VCs were opening their checkbooks, the startups are wanting money. You had a couple of other interesting things which I'm quite excited by, and I think this will impact the market going forward pretty significantly. I think so. One thing we saw was something we're calling VC tourism. So VCs that had previously been putting money into whether it be retail or into travel or into other sectors that weren't paying back the same rewards that health were, coming into the health space and investing into health tech. So suddenly you had even more capital going in. What we also saw, startups going through an IPO process. Yeah, so we'll have clocked from the InsurTechs, from the Lemonades, the Oscars, the Clovers, all of these guys looking at or going through IPOs. What that does is it releases cash back into the market to the venture capital, to the venture capitalists, and they're looking to reinvest that. It also attracts more entrepreneurs into the space. So actually what we're seeing, and Q1's a great signal for this, is more entrepreneurs and more cash and a really healthy, buoyant innovation market. So I'm really excited by what that looks like. And for me, I've said it many times over the last few months, I feel like we're just at the start of something. And so I feel like the pace of what we're seeing will only accelerate from now on. So this new wave of health tech. Interestingly, that's coupled with the early stage, late stage. So going back to what I said about early stage money impacting the market 5-10 years down the road and late stage much sooner, the very fact that half the deals were early stage and half the deals were late stage gives us a great sense of there's a lot to get our head around right now, but actually there's an awful lot to be looking forward to as well. So in terms of change. And the last thing on this slide is the regions. So throughout this whole presentation, I want to be talking about local in terms of GCC, but I also want to talk about global. And what we can see is 4.7 billion of a 5.7 billion year was from the US, right? That's a huge amount of money. And it's really important. And so I'm based in the UK. That's where our head office is. And it's the same for us as it's the GCC. It's incredibly important that we're investing into our local innovation ecosystems. Yeah, so 20 million invested into GCC is a small amount of money. And we're going to talk about some of the startups where that money went to. So that's from a kind of financial perspective. Hopefully some interesting thoughts in there. And as Frederick mentioned, please feel free to ask any questions throughout this. What I also want to jump into is some trends that we're seeing and who those companies are behind the trends. So we're going to start with virtual care delivery. So what does virtual care delivery start with? Maybe let's begin there. So it's a broad term encompassing all the ways healthcare providers remotely interact with patients. Okay, so telemedicine, teleconsultation, telehealth, a big one of those that we saw. It ranges from triaging, supporting health and wellness, supporting treatment adherence, all of that. On the left-hand side, we've got Tabibi and Babylon Health. So two similar businesses in what they do. And I again, for the next couple of trends, I want to look at local and I want to look at global, okay, and draw a comparison there. So Tabibi. So originally it started out as an online medical directory. So they gave users access to doctors' information, such as medical qualifications, services, etc. And then in 2017, they pivoted, upgraded to become an ecosystem platform. So now on one side, you've got doctors who can manage and monitor their patients in real time. And on the other side, you've got patients who can get access to doctors and medical service providers. Okay, so you've got that kind of that connection there. So since launching, they've got 3 million unique visitors. And in 2018, I think it was, they got a 770K Series A investment, right? So it's small money. And interestingly, that was from a UK venture capitalist called Ground One Ventures. Babylon Health. So this is almost kind of the giant, if you like, in the kind of the telehealth space. So AI-powered medical advice and teleconsultations. You've got 20 million people using it across the globe. In 2019, as you can see there, they delivered consultations every 10 seconds over a 24/7 period. They delivered more than 8 million virtual consultations. Their revenue is increasing 4-fold a year. So it's expected to take home something like 300 million in 2021. They, interestingly, their last round was Saudi Arabia's public investment fund into Babylon. And they're currently working with investment bankers towards a $4 billion US listing. So, so really interesting business, so much further on than Tabibi. but in terms of kind of the art of the possible and where we should be looking, really interesting. So also I wanted to introduce a business that I'm hoping none of you have come across. And this is Neurologics in Canada. And I don't want to distract from the presentation by encouraging you all to the Google Play or App Store, but you really ought to go and download Anura, okay? It's free to download. Put your camera in front of your face, and it's the world's first app that allows for contactless blood pressure measurement without the need for cuffs or wearables, right? So in 30 seconds, using your camera from your phone, you can measure your heart rate, stress levels, BMI, cardiovascular disease risks, all with medical grade accuracy. And it's brilliant. And for anybody in this space and anybody looking at this, any health insurer out there, it's one of those classic businesses that that has so much potential as we move into virtual care delivery. I'm going to jump into the second trend, from compensation to prevention. So again, on the left-hand side, two comparators. So one local, one global. And in fact, from Dr. Maz's presentation, I see there's a relationship with Dakadu and Daman already. And so from a higher tech perspective, what they do is they've created an ecosystem around wellness. So they're on a mission to create healthy behavioral change. So they use gamification, wearables, wellness rewards, founded by Sandra Knight. So she's originally American Lebanese, but lives in Bahrain. And they've got some great stats in terms of how they can increase engagement, reduce absenteeism, the ROI and reduced health costs, etc. So definitely a business which is well worth looking into. Dakadu, similarly, it's a Swiss company, so again uses gamification, AI, coaching, behavioral science. Interesting, what they have also on a commercial side is they've got a risk engine, and so it supports faster underwriting and dynamic pricing. And so it calculates the relative risks of various mortalities and morbidities in real time based on what they call over 300 million person years of clinical data. Yeah, so an inordinate amount of computation going on there. On the right-hand side, Umore. So I first came across these guys not too long ago. So in fact, I think they were only launched in 2020. So it was the founder was pitching a VC in an airplane over Dubai, I think it was. And then they jumped out of the airplane together or something crazy like that. Anyway, interesting business. So it's super early stage, using AI to track mental health well-being. So one thing that we've seen from around the world in light of kind of the acceleration from COVID is the looking after one's mental health. So they're into a really interesting space. They have recently, in fact, I think it's just a few days ago, they raised £120,000 from the Venture City, which is an accelerator based in Latin America. And I think the first GCC business to join that program. And they've had over 3,000 users since launch. So again, another interesting business, well worth having a look at. So the last trend, the backend innovation. So so hype versus truth, right? So there's a lot of hype around everything being very much customer focused and all these shiny new innovations, some of which I've shared with you. But the truth is there's a lot of value for insurers and health businesses in digitizing process and systems, getting away from paper, from manual interventions. So let me talk about these first two, again, two comparators. So Claim, very early stage, only founded last year. It's a SaaS platform with AI-driven claim management and billing, processing, financing in one. Okay, so I'm not too sure how far down the road they are. They are, I think, in with one of the local hospitals. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, so forgive me there. And they're looking to expand operations into Saudi Arabia by end of H1, so end of this first half of the year. Olive on the other side, much more advanced. So it's a classic US health business. It's raised over 450 million, valued at 1.5 billion already, works with 600 hospitals, and they position themselves as an AI as a service platform. Strongly worth checking out, and hopefully it can give it can be a great example for where Claim can get to for their own business. And then Healthy Health UK. So an interesting one, another UK business. For me, particularly interesting. So they collect, so they help insurers with underwriting and risk prevention. Okay, and then they do this through a data-led health risk assessment. What does that mean? What they do is they collect on average 600,000 data points on each customer. And that's crazy. Okay, so that's looking at lifestyle, mental, emotional experiences, pollution, social data, etc. They get this through wearables, through phones, through apps, and I think they have something like 175 digital providers, so data providers. Super interesting, super early stage also, but it's one of those to check out. So there's some trends, but it's not just the startups changing the market, and Frederick alluded to this in the introduction to my talk. So I want to talk about changing customer behaviors. So this study is slightly old, but I love it, and it's also quite parochial, right? It's Italy 2019. There are lots and lots of trends. There are lots and lots of studies out there that show similar things, and this is an only growing trend as we become more digital and more open to buying insurance from non-insurance companies. On the left-hand side, let's just take a quick look. So these are the share of respondents open to buying insurance from new entrants. For me, less interesting is the millennials, right? So over 90% of millennials were open to buying insurance from new entrants. For me, it's a 76%, right? So over 3/4 of people who responded said, yeah, I'm open to buying insurance from a non-insurance company. On the right-hand side, it digs in a little deeper. Okay, so where would you be looking to buy the insurance from? Okay, so in both instances, you have the primary insurer. What interests me though is how Amazon, how Google, how Apple, and also how the retailers are slowly climbing the ranks. Okay, and if we jump one more slide, if you think about sort of big tech, and I'm really wanting to focus in those guys. Currently, they act as a digital enabler, yeah, or potentially in some instances a distribution partner for insurers. But if they own the data, so via their hardware, if they own the analytics, so via their cloud software, and if they own the distribution, so via their customer platforms, then there's a real great risk for insurers of being either commoditized or certainly disintermediated. And I think that's fascinating. And so going through these, what we have in terms of health is you've got one great big company that's missing there, right? It's Amazon, which I dine out on. I love studying so very much. But from a Google perspective, in 2019 they set up Verily, which partnered with John Hancock to provide a tailored life insurance product for customers with diabetes. In July 2020, they announced a subsidiary health insurance company called Coefficient Insurance, backed by Swiss Re's commercial insurance arm. Facebook, they partnered with local financial institutions out in India to offer life insurance, or health and life insurance through WhatsApp. And then Apple, I think, is also fascinating. It's focused heavily on health tech or healthcare. So it combines personal health and wellness data with its artificial intelligence capabilities. Okay, so the company's ramped up health tracking features in its Apple Watch device, and now its smartwatch, so this guy, can measure oxygen saturation of users' blood so they can better understand the overall fitness and wellness, right? And then the reports on AirPods, improving accuracy of health signals, etc. So they're getting a lot of information, a lot of data that will potentially help with underwriting and providing insurance opportunities going forward. Okay, from an Amazon perspective, I don't know, maybe we don't have time for it today, but I think there's a lot of moves that Amazon are displaying in terms of who they're investing into, who they're buying up across the innovation ecosystem. An awful lot of activity in the healthcare space. Key things they launched with Berkshire Hathaway and JP Morgan Chase. They launched Haven, which earlier this year got disbanded. If you get behind the scenes of kind of the press releases and actually interviews with individuals who work there, then there's a lot of talk about actually Amazon are better going out alone. They've experimented for the last couple of years. There's now opportunity to innovate separately. I think we're going to see some very, very interesting things from this space. So closing down, I just want to leave you with a quick takeaway. So there's a world of innovation out there. You need to look both near and far. So I'm talking both geographically and from a time horizon perspective. And really, it's about trying not to focus on the hype. There's an awful lot of noise on who's doing what out there, but focus on the data, focus on real business need, and make sure that you're tracking the art of the possible, but making sure that you also think beyond your traditional competitors. It's not just about the incumbents. It's certainly not just about incumbents versus insurtechs. There's a whole load of other innovation that's moving into the health space that's important to keep abreast of. Frederick, back to you.
Yeah, yeah. That was a lot of food for thought. Thank you, Matt. Sitting here in an incumbent insurance role is like, okay, what's going to happen? Can you? Now, okay, I have questions and I have a million thoughts in my mind. One of them is now, let me not say if, because when big tech they start selling insurance, and with the development in the health tech landscape that you're seeing and you just presented, which was exceptionally interesting, as I also expected. Thank you. But where would it, from a strategic point of view, where would it leave insurers, right? Because and the health tech, right? Because let's say that in 5 or 7 years, the big tech really go all in on selling insurance, then I would guarantee that's going to be the insurer's primary distribution channel. So how does that affect this boom in the insurtech or health tech landscape that you just presented? Do you think they will? No, yeah, I'll leave you to give some thoughts about that.
Yeah, well, I think there are probably 3 things. So first of all, we'll see a growing attraction towards big tech and actually buying from big tech. So should this occur? And so what that will mean from a health insurer perspective is simply a decline in customers. The second is the opportunity to work with big tech, right? So we saw this with Amazon and Acco. So this was an investment. So we were out there probably a couple of years ago, just as they were putting money into Acco for the first time. Acco, a relatively new early stage insurance offering. And lo and behold, I think it was only just a few months ago, they launched a car insurance product through Amazon Pay that was driven, excuse the pun, that was provided by Acco. And so the second scenario is that the health insurer moves into a backseat, right? So you're supplying the big tech. So that's kind of the disintermediated role, but your role and function changes, and your product is sold through Amazon and others as a distribution arm. And the worst case scenario is these businesses are data businesses, right? Your business is a data business. If they shift wholesale into actually providing insurance capability, they have a vast amount of money, they have a vast amount of data, and they have the technological smarts to build digital substrates and provide a health offering direct to consumers. Super interesting, right? So how the landscape will change, it depends very much on the tactics that they employ. But I'm fascinated by it, and I think it's really important as part of a kind of competitive landscape piece to just keep an eye on that regularly, because it's changing so quickly. Actually,
from where I'm sitting here right now, I would be inclined to think that if you want to make sure that you have something to say in the future with the big tech as distribution channels and even more, right? It's probably now that's the time to start looking at everything that you presented, and as an insurer go and say, okay, how can we actually team up or partner up with what's going on and on the forefront to make sure that we actually have an attractive offering when the time comes. What is your thoughts on that?
So we have clients who are already asking us for introductions, and so we take clients around the world, from China to India, as I was mentioning with Acco, but equally spending time in Silicon Valley, making those and building those connections. So yeah, it's absolutely bang on, Frederick.
And so a direct question here is, one thing is hearing about what's going on and what's possible, and of course when you're presenting it really sounds like this is the future. And you may leave this webinar energized and say, wow, we have to be part of this. And then when you come back home to your insurance company or other company, then you'll face a lot of headwind in actually getting this done. Do you have any experience or advice to the people on this webinar or me? how do you actually make partnering up with these new techs a success?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question as well, and it's something that we're speaking and working with clients on a daily basis. So the very first thing is to understand the market. Yeah, so understand how the landscape is changing, and this is just a small snapshot of that. Okay, and it will be relevant. Or there will be a deep dive into for each client. It will differ, of course, depending on the nature of their business. The next thing is then to align opportunities. So for some companies, what we normally dissect it into near term and far term. So the near term are looking at the challenges that you're currently facing and the opportunities that that are presented by the innovation taking place in the established ecosystem, and working through and maybe similar to how Dr. Maz has been working within your team. So it's then working through which of the startups out there can possibly meet those challenges. And what we will always find is that whatever you believe those challenges to be and whatever the solution is that we can find out there, when coming together, the sum of those two parts is always greater than the individuals. And so working together in collaboration will always open up new opportunities. And so, yeah, we have a whole program, from a business perspective, we have a whole program that we work with our clients through from origination, so identifying who's out there and who's doing what, all the way through to validating POCs, and then scaling those partnerships. And open innovation is one of those where, I mean, we're a platform business, or half our business is a platform business. Our platform has just over the last 9-12 months during COVID, it's just been hammered because, of course, people are looking for more and more partnerships to accelerate and advance into the future. In terms of the longer term opportunities, then it's looking at much more that kind of early stage emergent innovation taking place, and as well as that, looking at the new concepts of the new sort of proposition development opportunities to where you can take your business, and then looking at what is out there that might help fulfill that. Again, because the tools to innovation are simple, right? And they're not very many. You buy, you partner, or you build. And okay, yeah, there are a couple more.
Don't you think, Matt? It's and Mars, I hope you prepare for a question soon. But I just want to ask you this one, Matt, because don't you think it's too? No, actually, I'll go directly to Mars, because I think this is two parallel projects, right? One project is where you are keeping a lookout on what's next and what's in the radar or on the radar for now on in the future. But another thing is it's perfectly fine to find the right partners and partner up with them, but how do you actually make it work? And Mars, maybe you have a few words on this, because I actually think that's one of the things that you've done with this app platform and the integration between the different layers.
Sure, Fredrik. Fredrik, I think going back to your question, the futures, I think between this large tech and the incumbents, I think it's not a question about the big tech and the incumbents. It's about who knows the customer better. It's about being able to have the data and being able to use the data to measure the risk and avoid an incident happening. We've already seen that happening with, for example, in automobile insurance for Tesla. They have the ability to measure the risk, avoid an incident, and therefore they're willing to kind of insure it. So I think the crux is going to be who has the data, and therefore the whole strategy of saying how can we own the customer interaction, bring it singularly, and it goes back to the same one app platform, one app, one single profile. The services are external, but the data is all internal. It's all synchronized into one longitudinal path, which can be used to measure and then also avoid an incident. And because I think the stakeholder who is in the best position to be able to measure the risk would be the winner in the situation. Thank you,
Mars. And again, also, I think it's a question of creating an infrastructure in your company that allows for these simple connectivities. Because if you don't have this I think you're going to kill your partner, your InsurTech partner, just trying to connect to the legacy IC system. So it's very much this layer between the incumbent IT systems and the future partnership. Matt, there's a question here for you. I don't know if you have that detail in this granularity, but can you say anything about if there are differences between the GCC countries, and especially if there are anything in the GCC that are focusing more on user or customer experience? I don't know if you have that level of granularity in your research.
We do in our research, just not in my head, Frederick. So apologies for not being able to answer that. Whoever asked the question, feel free to get hold of me directly, and we can provide that data and the analysis on top of that.
All right, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay, time's up. I would like to thank both of you very much for participating. I learned a lot of new things today, and honestly, I'm also a little relieved to see that some of the things that we are doing, especially with Mars, is on the right track. And for sure, Matt, you gave me a lot of new ideas as well. So thank you very much, both of you, for your time here. I enjoyed, and I hope everybody joined the webinar as well. They got a lot out of it. So again, thank you very much for your participation, and take good care. Bye bye.